Heat restrictions are temporary speed restrictions that put in place when temperature of the track hits a certain threshold. So in New Zealand, that threshold sits at 40 degrees. The main reason for imposing these speed restrictions is to reduce the safety impact on derailments. So the rail does expand like any steel in heat. For example, if you're trying to get a lid off a jar, if you put it under warm water, the jar lid, because it's metal, will expand and it's easier to remove. The same principle happens with rail. Steel is a dark color. It does attract the heat from the sun, and it stays at a certain temperature for a long time. In New Zealand, we have a lot of continuous welded rail, which means we don't have a lot of joints. So there's not much room for expansion when the rail does get to a certain temperature. With welded rail, we need to stress that rail to a certain stress-free temperature to reduce the risk of heat buckles within the railway. But in modern railways around the world, it's continuous welded rail. That reduces a lot of maintenance required on the joints themselves, and also reduces a lot of noise. So the way that we determine if a heat 40 is required or not is through a process called track stability analysis. We use a lot of data and information to identify an area that may or may not need a heat 40. And that comes down to, have we cut the track for a reason? Is there a lack of ballast? And multiple other different reasons through that process. So not the whole of Auckland potentially will have a heat restriction on, but as more works go on, until we de-stress that bit of track, the potential is that heat 40 will be required. Some people may ask why we don't de-stress and remove the need for a heat 40 in the same night that we do such work as re-rail. The problem is, in Auckland, it's a very busy network with freight and passenger services. So we have an access plan and a maintenance plan that we try and adhere to. So sometimes that we'll do a re-rail in one night, and we may have to come back in the next following nights, or even potentially in 2 or 3 weeks, to do that de-stressing to remove that need for the heat 40. The way that we minimize the need for heat restrictions is such things as we heat treat our rail before it's installed. We also ensure that all the fastenings and clips that hold the rail in are in good condition. The ballast is also sufficient and in good condition. And once it's installed, we de-stress. De-stress is a process that we lay the rail down and we pull it with what's called hydraulic tensors to allow that rail to be stressed to a certain temperature and a certain level. Allows that rail to expand and subtract in the temperatures in the environment that we have in New Zealand, to stop it from what they're calling pull apart, so any breaks in the rail and or buckles. Railways around the world impose heat restrictions. Depending on countries and the temperature of that country, it does fluctuate slightly, but all railways impose these heat restrictions for a safety aspect around the risk of buckling. In New Zealand, we're not unique, but our levels are such that we have a stress-free temperature, a medium temperature of 27 degrees, very similar to the UK.